Hey there, everyone. We are back today with another comic review, and we're looking at the first trade paperback for All-Star Western. So, All-Star Western is basically the Jonah Hex comic book that came out of the New 52. So, first, if you were reading Jonah Hex before this, it's got the same writing team, so you know it's going to be good. So, Justin Gray, Jimmy Palmiotti as a team up. I really like these guys as a team. Like, they are great. So, uh, I got this All Star Western book by Luck. These are like impossible to find. There's some volumes that are really easy to find and some that aren't, but in Japan, basically all of them are like $80 each. I'm not spending $80, but I found this at a used bookstore. And I was happy because I wanted to read it because I like Jonah Hex. I buy all the Jonah Hex stuff I can buy when I find it, but it's rare because, cowboys are not incredibly popular in Japan. But All Star Western is a Jonah Hex book, but it has a different take. It's not your standard Western Jonah Hex. I should mention, what does it collect? Issues 1 through 6 of All Star Western. So it starts with, Jonah Hex being called to Gotham City. So he's in Gotham City and he's on a bounty, and he gets teamed up with Amadeus Arkham, who wants to start Arkham Asylum. So basically, the founder of Arkham Asylum and Jonah Hex team up to hunt a serial killer. And it starts off where you think, like, they kind of throw a swerve at you because it's like, oh, there's some kind of slasher killing prostitutes. It's like, it's going to be a Jack the Ripper thing, and he's writing stuff on the wall. And it turns out, like, it's kind of a swerve because it's not exactly that. It's not, like, not going to be a Jack the Ripper thing. That becomes kind of, like, obvious. But, like, so you've got Amadeus Arkham, who is this kind of, like, intellectual dude who is, like, he's a doctor. He's not like someone who's going to hang out with Jonah Hex. But Jonah Hex, of course, is the bounty hunter who knows everything. he's the best at doing what he does, which is finding people and beating people up in bars. So as you can see, like, he fights people in bars. He gets information from prostitutes. He's basically taken out a whole bar. It's great. There's a lot of action in this. There's a lot of, like, good art, a lot of good storytelling where they set up this kind of almost like buddy comedy where, like, Jonah Hex is the serious all the time tough guy. He's like the straight man, and Amadeus Arkham is, I wouldn't say he's goofy. He's not, but, like, there's such, like, a weird cross of worlds here where these two just don't fit together, but they kind of work as a team. So, like, they have specific things where each of them can do something the other can't, so they, like, keep getting stuck together even though, like, they really shouldn't be. So, like, they find this thing, the prostitute they got information from gets killed, and, like, there's a Jonah Hex leave Gotham written in blood. So, like, they don't want Jonah Hex, whoever the killer is. So, like, he stays with Arkham because, like, he figures it's dangerous. They should find some info together. So now they go to this high society party where the doctor is invited, and he brings Jonah Hex. But, like, of course, it's the opposite scene of the bar scene where, like, the doctor is out of place in the bar. But here, like, Jonah Hex is really out of place. He's like a cowboy in in this, like, kind of ballroom. But, like, they get this thing where they figure out, like, they had a clue earlier that, like, oh yeah, the killer has a ring, and they find, like, at the party, oh damn, basically there's a bunch of people with the same ring. So, like, we've got a secret society going on here, and then it gets good. So, like, we got showdown at House Arkham. So, like, they go back to Arkham and they're like, we know, like, one of those dudes is the killer, but, like, they're a whole group. This is no good for us. And, like, it ties into the crime religion. So if you've been reading DC, if you were reading, like, in what Infinite Crisis was it, where the crime Bible was a big thing, and in 52 it was a big thing, the crime Bible, where, like, the question was searching for the crime Bible, and then when who became the question? Renee Montoya becomes the question. In her like miniseries, she is looking for the crime Bible to figure out what it is. But in this, they're like talking about this like kind of religion of crime based on the crime Bible. So it kind of brings that back into the New 52 here, but in the past with Jonah Hex. So it's like, you know, late 1800s, I guess. But here, like, you know, they send people to attack them at the house, and of course, like, they're like, we'll send a dozen men. That's enough to take out 2 people. Not enough to take out badass Jonah Hex, of course. So these badass city boys are not bad enough to take out Jonah Hex. Not many people would be. But, you know, Jonah Hex tortures him, tells him he'll save him if he tells him who it is. And he gives him, and Jonah Hex kills him, of course. So the Lords of Crime is the next thing. But they go into this and they figure out, like, okay, there is a secret society and they're all in on the killing. It has to do with the crime Bible. They've captured the chief of police, who had, you know, allowed Jonah Hex to be there, sort of. Another police officer hired him, but he didn't stop him. So like they've captured him and they're gonna kill him, but they come in and find them. And like what happens is like they kind of like go in there and just wreck a bunch of people. Like, you know, like some of the main guys get away, but like, you know, they're wrecking people. Amadeus Arkham actually saves Jonah Hex for once. But this is good. And then they try to, you know, they save the police chief and they brought in some other people and they're like, okay, we're going to go arrest these guys. And then they show up with a Gatling gun and just mow down everybody. Jonah Hex saves Arkham, and they figure like, okay, we've got to leave. We got to, you know, we've got to save all these people, right? So like what happens is, you know, they're in town and they're like, okay, we don't know what's happening, but Jonah Hex is like, okay, I guess we're done here. We're done with this bounty. And he's gonna leave, but someone stops him and makes him take another bounty for a really high price to like find a missing child. And so like what happens is Amadeus Arkham is kind of in on this also, so they end up teaming up again to hunt down the missing child. And so here, like they found this kid. So like what happens is like they're talking about where would missing kids be. So like Jonah Hex goes to the church where the missing kids would be, and they find like Amadeus Arkham is there, and he's like, oh, Jonah Hex, what are you doing here? He's like talking about they found this kid recently who's like been apparently living underground for years and years, and he's like all rat bitten and horribly malnourished. And so like they're like, oh no, we gotta figure this out. So like they figure out there's like they've been kidnapping children to kind of like work on things. And it ends up that like there's a twist. You know, they're down there fighting these people, and they get captured and tossed into this whirlpool, and you know they get saved, but it ends up like, you know, they end up in this kind of underground tunnels under Gotham, and they run into this group of like a lost tribe kind of living under Gotham. And this is another thing that was in Dark Knight's Metal. There was like the tribe of the Bat that lived in the caves under that, like started after Batman R.I.P. No, Batman, the death of Bruce Wayne and the death and return of Bruce Wayne. There was that kind of, Grant Morrison set up that thing where there's like the cult of the Bat or whatever that was like the tribe that they started early on in caveman days after Bruce Wayne showed up. It's kind of like that. And like, you know, because there's a giant bat. These Indians are very happy Jonah Hex kills it, and they respect him from there, and they let him go and teach them the way out. And they find that like the dude who hired Jonah Hex to stop the slavers to find the kid anyway, is the guy running the slave mines. And it's a swerve because like kid who was previously the malnourished kid. His parents actually kidnapped the kid, and they were just used the rich guy to break up to hire Jonah Hex to help the other kids. So it kind of works out. And then like they're like, oh, we got to still figure out what that secret society is about. And they're like, oh, I guess we got to go to New Orleans to find them, because that's where they ran off to. And they run to New Orleans, and that's kind of the end. It ends on this, where you've got Cinnamon and this guy, whose name I forget. But then at the end of the book, you've got two kind of one-shot stories. You've got an El Diablo story. I like El Diablo, especially when Gray Palmiotti team are writing him. He's kind of like El Diablo is the demon that possesses Lazarus Lane, I think his name is. Lazarus Lane? I think it's Lane. Wait, it'll probably say. Lazarus Lane, I was totally right. So Lazarus Lane, he's like possessed by the demon here. This El Diablo, who is like a demon of vengeance. He's kind of like Ghost Rider, but a horse riding Ghost Rider with a flaming whip and hell guns. But he, every time with Lazarus Lane, when Lazarus Lane sleeps or is knocked out, El Diablo will come out and start his path of vengeance or whatever. So here, like, El Diablo is fighting this Indian who is looking for revenge on these people, but like he actually doesn't win. So it's actually kind of interesting because it's kind of an interesting story in the sense that the hero loses. He loses, but like he helps the people of the town escape. He gets rid of the curse, but he loses the battle. So he's left injured and has to leave, but he saved them, but he didn't stop the source. Basically, he has a reoccurring villain at this point. So it's kind of a good story. It shows that he has trouble. He's not like gonna run in and win every time. He thinks he can, but he's not going to. And that's like a difference. He has an actual, he has trials. He has like some actual things that happen to him that are bad, and it doesn't come out like perfect for him. This is the end. He's injured and limps away, even though he technically saved them. He's not exactly the unscathed winner. He's not like a, high five, I win. It was easy. It wasn't easy. He didn't win. He just scraped by. And then you have another story here, which is actually another kind of fill-in story, which is for the Barbary Ghost. And this is basically like the origin of the Barbary Ghost. So like her family is killed by these kind of Chinese crime bosses, and she's like on this path for revenge to kill them. So she has like started this identity of the Barbary Ghost, where she like uses kind of tricks and fighting to take revenge on the Chinese gang that killed her whole family, basically. So, she's like just really good at murdering these guys, basically. And then she's, what happens is like she learns that, she gets in there and she finds the crime boss, and she thinks her mother is dead, but the crime boss is like, no, I just sold her. She's still alive, and you'll never find out where she is if you kill me. But she don't care. She's like, I'll find her my own way, and kills him anyway, and they go off to look for her mother. That's the end for now. I don't know if these continued in later issues, but I hope they did, because overall, this was really good. This is an interesting story where you have a lot of kind of, you have this kind of cool dynamic between Jonah Hex and Amadeus Arkham. The backup stories are great. They're good in the other books too. In the previous, like pre-New 52 Jonah Hex, it's not much different. So I guess I haven't seen Batlash yet, so maybe he shows up later. But All-Star Western, I hope I find more of these, really, because there's like 6 volumes maybe. And I'd like to have them all, but, you know, good luck, I guess. It seems unlikely that I'm going to find them for a reasonable price. But if I do, I'll definitely buy them and talk about them more because I really liked this and I would really recommend it. It's even if you think like, man, I don't like westerns, because I would have said that myself. I don't really like westerns, but like I have a friend who was like, no, it's not really like a western. It's kind of like a horror with western characters, and I was like, oh, well, that sounds better. And it is like that. It's very much like kind of a horror adventure with a cowboy and a city doctor or something. It's like weird. So, but even the cowboy stuff like Lazarus Lane and Barbary Ghost are basically Western tales, but they're still good. Still good. They're supernatural Western tales. It's very good. So definitely look at All Star Western if you have a chance. It's I would say like get these trades, but I think they're all like out of print and expensive, or like some of them are out of print and expensive. So like it's probably actually cheaper just to get the single issues at this point, since I assume they're probably like dollar bin fodder at this point. But yeah, All Star Western, definitely get it. So that's all. I will catch you guys next time.